Hello and welcome to Reality Check. Just 5 words. No such data is maintained has sparked national outrage. The 5 words are part of the government's reply to the question of whether it counted the deaths of migrants who died on their journey home after the lockdown was enforced and whether the families were paid compensation. But no such data has been compiled, says the Labour Minister, and therefore no compensation. The outrage to this reply has been severe, all the more since the deaths of many migrants were in the public record, reported by the media, sometimes by bystanders, and sometimes captured by those who survived the journey. We tried to invite the Labour Minister to the show, but he declined. Regardless, what we are about to play out may help jolt his and the government's memory. The stories, the tragic stories of the men and women who died making that fatal journey home. So let's begin. We begin with the image that has been seared on our collective memory. A moving picture of a migrant worker, Amrit Kumar, visibly sick due to the grueling journey to reach his home in Uttar Pradesh, lying on the lap of his friend Yaqub Mohammed by the side of a road in Madhya Pradesh's Shivpuri district as his friend calls for help, and this was widely shared on social media. Hours later, Amrit died at a hospital due to complications related to heat. In May, we filmed this tempo packed with migrants travelling from Mumbai to Lucknow. The driver told my colleague Sohit Mishra of the journey ahead.
इतनी परेशानी लेकर जा रहे हैं लेकिन रुकने को तैयार नहीं है यहाँ पर, क्यों ऐसा कर रहे हैं आप लोग?
सर प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मकान का भाड़ा जो इसका है वो तो मांगेगा, बिजली का बिल मांगेगा, खाने को सर कोई इंतजाम नहीं है। और जो भी खाना मिलता है तो अगर आप ड्राई फ्रूट दे देते हो तो उसको पकाने के लिए ईंधन चाहिए, किधर से लाएंगे? अच्छा,
एक बात बताइए, तो आप लोग सब एक परिवार से हैं या इनसे क्या पैसा है?
नहीं सर, ये हमारे सब रिलेटिव हैं और सब सरमती से सब लोग बैठे हैं। जो भी पैसा हम लोगों के बीच में मतलब डीजल का खर्चा आएगा सर, उसी पे अफोर्ड करके चले जाएंगे।
Moments later, we found the wreckage further down the road. The driver himself a migrant dead, many others injured. In Lucknow, these are the children of Krishan Sahu and Pramila, shortly after they died in an accident while cycling on an almost 700-kilometer journey from Lucknow to Chhattisgarh. Nikhil was 4 and Chandni was just 18 months old. This is them today.
कभी अपने माँ बाप को याद करती है, कभी आपसे पूछती है, ऐसा कुछ है?
जिस समय आया था उस समय 1 हफ्ते 2 हफ्ते से परेशान किया कि मम्मी जाएंगे, पापा जाएंगे, मम्मी जाएंगे, पापा जाएंगे। और जब हम लोग का प्यार मिला, बढ़िया हम लोग प्यार दिया इन लोग को, तो तब से जो है उनके याद ही नहीं करता है। और कहता है कि हम अगर उनको फोटो भी दिखा देंगे, कहता है हमारे मम्मी पापा नहीं हैं, हमारे मम्मी पापा तो आप ही लोग हैं।
A migrant worker trying to cycle over 1,000 kilometers from Delhi to his hometown of East Champaran in Bihar died in Lucknow after being hit by a car. He is survived by his wife and 3 children. 5 migrant labourers died and 15 were injured in Madhya Pradesh late night when a truck they were travelling in overturned in a village about 200 kilometers away from Bhopal. The group of 20 had started their journey from Hyderabad and they were headed to Jhansi in Madhya Pradesh and a town in Uttar Pradesh in a truck carrying mangoes. 8 labourers died and over 54 suffered injuries after the truck they were travelling in was hit by a speeding bus in Madhya Pradesh's Guna. This was hours after 6 migrant workers were run over by a bus on a highway in Uttar Pradesh. 24 migrants killed and more than 30 injured when the trucks they were travelling in collided at around 3 a.m. in Uttar Pradesh's Auraiya district, about 200 kilometers from Lucknow. And finally, an image which seared the nation. A baby, an infant, playing with a shroud covering its dead mother at a station in Bihar. One of the most tragic visuals to emerge from the reports of migrants dislocated by the coronavirus and dying, many of them on the journey. The clip is from a station in Muzaffarpur in Bihar. where the 23-year-old woman had arrived in a special train for migrants, but she didn't make it. Now, these are just a fraction of the stories of the fatal end to the journey of India's migrants. There are many, many more. One estimate, an informal estimate, an unofficial estimate, puts the total number of close to 3,300 deaths, I beg your pardon, on roads and on trains. All right, let's go to panel on this story. We're joined by Rajendra Narayanan, Assistant Professor at Azim Premji University, volunteer with the Stranded Workers Action Network. Anjali Bharadwaj is here with us, social activist, co-convener of the NCPRI. Niranjan Shetty, spokesperson BJP Maharashtra, is joining us from Mumbai, and from Chandigarh, Sunil Jakhar, Punjab Pradesh Congress President, former MP. Thank you all for being here. Rajendra Narayanan, now we are used to various forms of obfuscation by the government, but they also have to manage the optics. Were you surprised when we just got this very terse reply by the Labour Ministry, this very basic one-line response saying no such data is maintained on the deaths of migrant workers?
I was not surprised, Vasu. I was just completely shocked by the utter callousness with which the Ministry of Labour and Employment has dealt with this. And even the government of India, the way they have dealt with this entire thing, I'm just shocked. And after creating the largest humanitarian crisis since 1947, they have the gall to say that they don't have any data, when even informally students and researchers and ordinary civilians have tabulated based on news reports that there have been at least 971 different deaths, which are non-COVID related deaths.
Right.
Secondly, the second point that I would like to raise, and this is as of 4th July 2020.
Yes.
The second point is when the government was asked about whether any economic assistance has been provided to the family, the government again said there is no such data. Now, on May 16th, 2020, after the 24 migrant workers died in Oriya district in Uttar Pradesh, the Prime Minister of India tweeted saying that an ex gratia of rupees 2 lakh each for the next of kin of those who lost their lives
will be provided,
and has been approved. But the government of India has not made any public statement substantiating the payment of these ex gratia amounts. 80 plus deaths have happened on the Shramik trains, which are part of the Indian Railways, which has been stated by Indian Railways itself, which is a central government, which is part of the central government, and even that is being completely denied.
Okay.
So,
Niranjan Shetty, this is somewhat shocking, is it not? First, you say there is no data on the number of migrants' deaths, and therefore there is no compensation, when, as we just played out, and we can again play those visuals as you respond, we know dozens and dozens of migrants died.
Vasu, what I would like to bring before tonight is, few moments back, half an hour back also, I was there on your phono, and especially when the social activist was there, I was bringing forth the facts before how basically the Honorable Member of Parliament has posed a wrong question at wrong locations. Basically, this is a state subject, and whatever, hear me out. Allow me to complete, thereafter you can question me, and
No, once again, death of migrants is a state subject?
Listen, allow me to complete, Vasu, then you can counter me. What I was trying to brief the panel at that moment also, and right now also, basically we need to understand these migrant workers. Mr. Rajendra Narayanan spoke about a history of 1947 till date. Now, I would also like to bring before him, it is not that from those days till date, such kind of data was ever available at the center. The migrant workers naturally from one state goes to another state, and it is the local state which takes care, and under the certain Labour Act of the state, he has been employed.
Niranjan ji, this is an extraordinary passing of the buck, if I have ever heard one. You are now saying a national lockdown announced by the Prime Minister, which everyone had to follow. When the migrants get dislocated, many of them die along the way, it is not our responsibility. I mean, I don't understand this. By the way, interestingly, the centre is supplying data on the total number of migrants that have moved. For the first time, they have actually produced that. About 1 crore, according to them, migrants moved in this time. So that data they're happy to supply, but there's no data on deaths. Anjali Bharadwaj, what do you make of this?
Can I submit on that? Can I have my submission on that?
Yeah, can I get Anjali Bharadwaj to respond, and then I'll come back to you. Anjali Bharadwaj, he's saying this, it's not the centre's responsibility to maintain deaths.
Look, Srinivasan, there are 2 or 3 things we need to understand here. The first is that the lockdown was announced by the central government. We are a country where nearly 90% of the workforce is in the unorganized sector. That is no secret.
Right.
The Prime Minister knows it, the central government certainly knows it. When a lockdown is announced, very clearly it is known that it will impact immediately millions and millions of people across the country, because all their income earning opportunities are stopped without any notice. It was basically announced at a notice of 4 hours.
Yes.
So to now say that there was no data with the central government, then the question arises that how was the decision taken? Was there no planning done before the government literally played with the lives of these millions of people?
In fact,
the issue here is,
in fact,
Srinivasan,
Anjali Bharadwaj, allow me for a second, because that's an important point you raised about then when you're planning something and triggering such a move, what exactly was the planning and what is the cause of it? Now, here comes another shocker. Let's put this graphic on the screen. Another parliament question was asked by a member of parliament saying, what was the reason for this mass exodus? And this is the answer that has been put up by the Home Ministry. Fake news. Fake news is the reason why this entire exodus happened. This is what the Home Ministry is now saying. The migration of a large number of migrant workers was triggered by panic created by fake news regarding duration of lockdown and people, especially migrant laborers, who were worried about adequate supply of basic necessities like food, drinking water, etc. However, central government was fully conscious of this and took all necessary measures to ensure that during period of the lockdown, no citizen should be deprived of amenities of food, drinking water, etc. So this now,
absolutely shocking.
Niranjan Shetty, this is now becoming surreal. First, centre says no data on deaths of migrants. You're saying it's not centre's responsibility. Now, centre is saying this huge exodus of 1 crore people took place not because of an abruptly enforced lockdown which allowed people no time to go home, but because of fake news. Yes, Niranjan Shetty.
Yeah.
Fake
now
news?
I would like to respond to
Fake
I'll come
news?
to your fake news later on. Allow me to complete
if you
what
can come to
asked
fake
me
news,
previously.
fake news.
But allow me to, submit something. Thereafter, you can question me. Now, my submission is, Anjali Bharadwaj spoke about that it was the central government which announced the lockdown. She fails to remember. Let me remind her that it was the Maharashtra government which announced first the lockdown. It was Punjab government which announced the first government even before the central government. It was Kerala government which announced the lockdown even before the central government. Very conveniently, she forgets all these things and then she abuses or takes wrong information to the media.
But the national lockdown was announced by the centre. But come on the fake news point now. Okay, you responded to that. Come on the fake news point. Niranjan Shetty, because I'll have to move on. Do you want to respond to fake news?
Apart from that, now especially when we are counting on the numbers, now it was the state government who gave them the numbers during when the migrant laborers were asked to, when they requested that a migrant laborers should be allowed to travel from one place to another. So it was again the state responsibility, and that is how we got the numbers.
Okay, so centre has washed its hands off. They are saying that it is Sunil Jakhar. Now centre is saying it's fake news which was responsible for this huge exodus. This is Home Ministry.
Can Mr. Shetty, or I don't blame Mr. Shetty, he is just I would say minor player in this whole thing. Can this government of India, Modi Sahab's government, can they explain to this little child the son or daughter of this Arniba Khatun, whom you just showed, trying to wake up the dead mother of his on Muzaffarpur railway station, is shocking. And I think I'm feeling very sad today. Shocked is one thing, but this audacity of these people to wash their hands off. Yes, it is not their responsibility. Poor people are not their responsibility. Their responsibility, Srinivas ji, is that they want to collect money. Do they have data of all the money they collected from the states for movement of these people? I can tell Mr. Shetty from Punjab, like he's talking about Punjab. We moved about 5.5 lakh people through railways, about 1,25,000 people by buses and all, and we paid altogether a sum of about 29 crore rupees to the central government.
Yes.
Is this their job? Do they have data for this? What about the misery all these people had to go through?
Yes.
16 lakh people registered, Srinivas ji, in Punjab to be sent back to their respective places.
Yes.
Of this, 398 trains, to be precise, we moved from various stations in Punjab to all over. In fact,
okay, so you're saying that states also put money on the line.
We have paid for it. We have paid for it.
You have paid for it, but interesting, I'm coming, Rajendran, to you, but interesting, Anjali Bharadwaj, you actually filed an RTI because the centre says PM Cares Fund paid 1,000 crores or disbursed 1,000 crores to states to allot for migrants. But your RTI, when you asked how is this money spent, there was no answer.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, there isn't any information that is forthcoming from the government about very critical things, starting from the number of migrants that are there to the number of deaths that we have seen. And when the central government is saying that we are putting money for the welfare of migrant workers, and we are trying to ask who got the money, where the money went, there is no response to that either.
The 1,000 crores, this is the RTI. This is the RTI you got. I'm just holding it up. This is the RTI which you filed, and the answer was that nothing, no response. We don't know where the funds went.
Absolutely. And I also want to say that there are 18 states in the country which are ruled by the BJP or its allies. So, are we then saying that the central government does not have any data? It's working without data to execute and announce a lockdown across the country, which is depriving people, millions across the country, of their basic rights. They're going without.
So where is the
issue of fake news? Where is the? And just one point.
Yes, quickly.
The issue is that when the people are hurled into destitution because all their income earning capacity is taken away, where do they pay rents from? Where do they feed their children from?
No, that's a very.
Leaving.
Yeah, exactly. Where is the?
Yes.
How are you supposed to support yourself?
They had nothing to eat.
No, that's true. Let me just go to. Okay, I'm coming back. I'm coming to you, Mr. Shetty. Yes. Go ahead, Rajendran. Quickly, and then I have to.
So I think Mr. Shetty is completely misplaced for two reasons. One is this is a government that is obsessed with data, and it has all sorts of data to surveil and monitor citizens. And when it comes to actually having data on the number of deaths, it's passing the baton of accountability. And second thing is monopolizing decisions and socializing losses is not what federalism is about. And that's exactly what this government is doing by passing the baton of accountability. The third question that was posed to the government of India is whether the government has done any assessment of job loss. Today, just Stranded Workers Action Network, we put out a simple report where we just alluded to 8 different studies, and each of them is indicating that there's been an income loss of between 50% to 75%, and about 70% of people have lost jobs due to lockdown. And even according to our own work of interacting with about 36,000 workers, what we found is during lockdown, 82% of the people did not get rations from the government, and 64% had not received any cooked food. And about 64% of the people had less than 100 rupees left with them.
Yes, but in the same, and I try and get the camera person to zoom in here. If we get the camera person to zoom in, It is in the same reply, Mr. Shetty, when the question was asked by the Member of Parliament as to, apart from saying data about the number of deaths, said no. Then the question was asked, question number D, whether the government has done any assessment of the job loss amongst migrant workers during the COVID-19 crisis, and if so, the details thereof, Mr. Shetty. Answer comes, no such data is maintained. So, even when it comes to the question of the job losses, no such data is maintained, Mr. Shetty, is what they are saying. So, even job loss, Mr. Shetty, you will say that is also the prerogative of the state government?
Vasu,
yes.
That is why I am continuing my same submission again. When Mr. Rajendran spoke about that we are passing the baton of accountability, that is not at all that we are not shying away from the responsibility, and neither we are passing the buck.
But you are only saying,
like to respond.
You are saying it is up to
state. That is what we need to understand. That is why I said in the beginning, it was the state responsibility. The state, when we asked the migrant workers to be shifted from the place of the work where they were doing their work and to their native place, it was the state government who forwarded us the details.
No,
and that
sir.
is how all those data came.
No,
number
sir.
one. Number two.
Sir.
Number two.
Sir, no one asked. The migrants, thousands of them, just hit the roads on their own. And they started to march. No state at that time or center was keeping a hand on their heads. They were on the move. The moment you announced the nationwide lockdown, the moment you took away livelihoods, they had no choice but to migrate in thousands and thousands.
I am not denying on your channel, it was not there. But this all chaos happened because of the callous attitude of the state. Now the honorable former member of parliament speaks about being
entire thing is now being blamed on the states.
In front of him.
But Niranjan ji, you are yourself, BJP is also running many state governments. They are also at fault, or only non-BJP state governments?
Let me complete. Allow me to complete. Then
I am so surprised when you blamed the states in such a blanket manner that I could not help but interject.
Can you deny the fact that these laborers, you tell me when the professor spoke about such kind of things happening from 1947, can he tell me that passed from 1947?
Okay, I want to get a quick word from Sunil Jakhar.
Allow me to complete, just give me 30 seconds.
Sunil Jakhar has not even spoken once. You just had one chance. Sunil Jakhar, you want to respond? That states did not convey enough information.
When Priyanka Vadra asked to come...
Okay, come in. Yes. Come in, Sunil Jakhar. Okay, one second, Mr. Shetty.
Where was she? The honorable...
They had all the personnel, all the data to check even the buses flying from Delhi to UP. Our PCC president, Mr. Lallu, was locked up because the buses, the government found that they didn't have the paper to fly on the roads. They had everything in place. Whole administration was in place, but it was a business for them. We had to pay in advance to the railways to book these trains. For them, it was a sheer business. All that I can say to Modi Sahib today, because I come from the land of gurus. And Guru Sahab's Bani says, "Itni maar pai kirlaye, tanki dard na ayo." I want to ask Modi Sahab, tanki dard na ayo.
Right.
Don't they? Like, he is the one who pleaded that he is coming from a poor background.
Yeah.
And now having dumped he's only concerned about
It is.
No, this is something.
It is something which should shake the conscience. But we have to leave it there. We're out of time. But as I said, instead of accepting that these deaths happened and instead of acknowledging the pain, we have responses that say no data, and now we have a response that says fake news triggered the exodus. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on Reality Check and for watching. That's all the time we have. Good night.